Good evening, everyone. This is the Committee of Precinct Chairs monthly meeting coming to you from, if you're watching us on the local scene or on Zoom from Town Hall, the Great Hall Meeting Room. It being 7:01, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And as we do, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The first item on the agenda this evening was the approval of minutes for July 18th, 2024. Unfortunately, unexpectedly, our admin is on leave right at the moment, so I've kind of halfway gone through those and have not completed, so I'd be looking for a motion to see if we could have that removed from the agenda this evening.
Motion to remove that for the next agenda.
Second.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to take roll call. Thank you so much for keeping me honest, Mr. Hutchinson. I did it mentally in my head and realized we had a quorum, so since we are Zoom and hybrid, we do need to take attendance because we have some members attending via Zoom. So we'll start with Precinct 1.
Christine Pratt, Precinct 1.
Precinct 2, myself, Matt Tavares. Precinct 3.
Precinct 3, where it all began, Dale Weber.
Precinct 4.
Precinct 4, Claire Montanari.
Precinct 5.
Mike Leary, Precinct 5.
Precinct 6.
Betty Cavaco, Precinct 6.
Precinct 7.
George Brown, Precinct 7.
Precinct 8.
Don Williams for George McKay, Vice Chair.
Precinct 9.
Catherine Holmes.
Precinct 10.
Precinct 10, Alan Costello.
Precinct 11.
Precinct 11, Frank O'Brien.
Precinct 12.
Precinct 12, Pat Adelman.
Precinct 13.
Ron Riley.
Precinct 14.
Tom Begley.
Precinct 15.
Precinct 15, where it continues, Wrestling Brewster.
Precinct 16.
Ken Stone, Vice Chair for Pompey Delphil.
Precinct 17.
Joe Hutchinson.
And Precinct 18.
Precinct 18, Carmelie Frieri in the middle of it all.
Okay. All right, so now I would look for a motion to,
Motion to take the agenda and put it on next month's agenda. I mean, the minutes to next month's agenda.
okay, can I get a second? Seconded, so motioned by Mr. Brewster, seconded by Mr. Brown. Because we are hybrid, we will do the roll. If you're ready, Pat, for the tally, okay. Precinct 1.
Approve.
Precinct 2, yes. Precinct 3.
Yes.
Precinct 4.
Yes.
Precinct 5.
Abstain.
Precinct 6.
Yes.
Precinct 7.
Affirmative.
Precinct 8.
Yes.
Precinct 9.
Yes.
Precinct 10.
Precinct 10, yes.
Precinct 11.
Precinct 11, yes.
Precinct 12.
Yes.
Precinct 13.
Yes.
Precinct 14.
Yes.
Precinct 15.
Yes.
Precinct 16.
Abstain.
Precinct 17.
Yes.
Precinct 18.
Precinct 18, yes.
Okay, so we will move those minutes. Yes.
Precinct 7, what was their vote?
Precinct 7 was affirmative, which means, yeah, so that's a yes vote. So we'll move those minutes to, I'll have those ready for our September meeting. Okay, so moving on next, land acknowledgement. Just because we do have a couple of members here, very briefly, in May, the COPC was presented with the presentation on a land acknowledgement agreement It was at that point that it was recommended to go to council, or voted on to go to council, town council. There was an opinion from town council, but I noted that there was a study done by the presenters that wasn't accompanied with that. So in June, we had asked town council to also review that document. And we would continue until this meeting here in August. So what I'd like to do is, since we've seen the presentations on this, is open this up to the committee to have a discussion. Catherine?
Yes, Mr. Chairman Travaris, I would like to put in a motion. So, but I'd like to say that before I do this, it's my number one responsibility as town meeting member to make sure that I'm protecting the residents of Plymouth, and in the decisions that we make now, but also to make sure that those are the right decisions for the future. So I've spent a fair bit of time talking to the residents of Plymouth and many people that are on this committee, and the language has had a lot of discussion. So the language for this proposal, and talking to a lot of people within the community, I do not believe that this is something that the COPC can make a decision on. So this is a town policy issue, in my opinion, and it needs to be driven by the select board and town management with the support of the Attorney General and the parties that are requesting acknowledgement of the language. If Plymouth agrees to adopt something like this, it should be in consistent language across all boards and committees and not ad hoc, as we are seeing with the varying languages. Therefore, I'd like to make this motion that this topic is removed from the agenda and referred to the select board for consideration, as I strongly believe it is truly a policy issue. So that is my motion.
And I'll second that.
So there's a motion on the floor. I was doing this very quickly, so I may ask you to repeat it.
That's okay.
Oh, I should put my microphone on. There's a motion on the floor. I may ask you to repeat it so that we can make sure that the clerk has the wording correctly.
Yep.
That was seconded by Mr. Leary. The motion is, if you could just repeat that
Sure.
for us.
That this topic be removed from the agenda and referred to the select board for consideration, as it is a policy issue.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Mr. Williams?
I really enjoy working with this board. We've gotten a lot of things done. I'm honored to be here. This is a good board. We make good decisions by and large. The one thing that I think that might help here is the memorandum from the attorney discusses a very lengthy land acknowledgement, which points to people who are wrong and infers that other people might be right. And some of that language has been offensive. Our watershed association, I'm the president of the Herring Ponds Watershed Association. What we did was we came up with a language that suited everybody's needs, without pointing fingers, without saying we're good, you're bad, or we're both bad. And it's very short, and I think that we should consider a shorter version of this and then maybe send that for acknowledgement. And let me read this. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the sacred land of the Wampanoag Nation. We honor the Herring Pond Wampanoag people, who are the original stewards of this place now known as Plymouth. May we keep the first peoples of this land in our hearts and minds as we discuss issues affecting their ancestral homelands. I like that. This is what we've adopted on the Herring Ponds Watershed Association. It deals with the present. It doesn't deal with the past. The past affects us. But our point here has always been to acknowledge the presence of the Native people and their contribution to what this land is. I think we do have a right to think about what we say before our meetings, to honor people in this way, without being judgmental. And I think the judgmental part of this was driving a lot of it. And I think that's unfortunate, because at the base of all of this, it's two peoples coming together and acknowledging each other's contribution to what's going on in Plymouth. And I think that this is an excellent opportunity to bring people together rather than drive them apart. And in this language, there's no one to blame. There's no one who is being taken to task for past events, because that's really not the point here. The point is we need to come together.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
my
Williams.
comment.
Actually, I appreciate your comments, but I just want to remind the committee that the discussion right now is on, if we're going by Robert's Rules of Order, which we've adopted to guide us, is the motion on the floor is to have the topic removed from the agenda and referred to the Select Board for consideration. So, but I appreciate what you
I
said.
would prefer to keep it on our board and discuss the new language.
Okay,
move it
but
forward.
at the
That's
moment, the motion on the floor is as I stated. So unfortunately, there'll be a vote on this motion, but right now we're in discussion on the motion of policy. So that last statement worked for the discussion purposes, because you'd prefer to keep it here. I have Mr. Brewster, Ms. Adelman, and then Mrs. Montanari.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Catherine for making this motion, because it is about policy. And by nature, by bylaw, and by definition, a committee does not make or enforce policy. If you look at that from a legal standpoint, we can't make any rules or make any laws. And town meeting, they always say, we don't make the laws, but we hold the purse strings. So for us to make a policy, it's really not right for this committee to make that policy. And I think that if the town wants to, go by a policy, then it can trickle down. The trickle-up effect that's been going on is not the way things should be done. And I have reached out to my caucus, and my caucus is in agreement to that. Their suggestion was, if they would like to read it at town meeting, that would be a good alternative. Thank you.
Next, I have Ms. Adelman, and then Ms. Montanari, and then I see Mrs. Cavaco online.
I will not vote to drop this from the agenda. I think we need to discuss it. We are the legislative body. If it means we have to make an article at town meeting, then I would suggest that somebody propose an article. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Montanari, and then Mrs. Cavaco, and then Mr. Leary.
I have a letter which we all probably got, which was sent June 25th from Kate McKay, who's general counsel for the town. Is it on?
Yeah, I think if you just bring it forward.
It's heavy. Okay. I'm sorry. I have a letter from Kate McKay dated June 25th. When we first discussed this, we had a meeting on June 18th, I believe it was. No, anyway, whatever. So it was sent, she gave an immediate response. Please forward this message to Chairman Tavares relating to his previous question on the land acknowledgement. Taking action on requests for land acknowledgements is not recommended, as the legal significance of such land acknowledgements is unclear and may have future binding implications. Responding to and managing multiple requests for acknowledgements from individual groups also runs the risk of claims of unintentionally elevating the status of one group at the expense of another. The purpose of an agenda is to inform the public, as to what topics will be discussed at a particular meeting, and to give notice to the public so that they may be informed and participate. Land acknowledgements should not be on an agenda for discussion purposes. That was from Kate, as I said earlier. Kate McKay, General Counsel.
Sure. That was the statement. Is there a follow-up or a question? Or are you just reading the statement into the
I'm
record?
just reading the letter
Okay.
that we received on June 25th.
Yep, okay.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Weber, point of order.
Could we have Kate McKay speak to that document, and in particular, bring clarity to the last sentence of that letter?
Sure. Kate McKay is here. Kate, would you like to speak to the statement, the last sentence being, hold on, you probably know it because you wrote it. The purpose of an agenda is to inform the public as to what topics will be discussed at a particular meeting and to give notice to the public so that they may be informed and participate. Mr. Weber would like clarification on the last sentence of land acknowledgements should not be on an agenda for discussion purposes. Kate McKay, Town Council. Just make sure the green light is on for us.
Good evening. The initial opinion that I had sent, I think it was back on June 25th, land acknowledgements should not be on for discussion purposes. That was intended to refer to the statements that were being put on the agendas.
Could you clarify that, please? I don't know which.
So when the question came at the time, there was the issue of land acknowledgements. Certain committees had put differing statements on their agendas. I think the committee, the No Place for Hate Committee has a statement on their agendas. I think the Conservation Commission has the Conservation Committee has a different statement on their agendas. And I think the COPC land acknowledgement study that was presented to you all by the League of Women Voters contained, I think, 2 or 3 other examples of statements that were on those agendas. So they should not be on the agenda. Those statements should not be, my opinion was, on an agenda for discussion purposes. They shouldn't be listed on the agenda.
All right, thank you.
Yes, I'm going to continue with, do you have a follow-up question?
For Kate McKay.
Ms. Adelman with a follow-up question to Kate McKay.
Are you saying that the statements that we see on the agenda that's always posted for those committees that you mentioned, that should not be there? Or we should not have a statement on our agenda to discuss?
They should not be on the agendas, the first thing that you said. They shouldn't be on the individual agendas.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry if that was unclear.
Yeah,
Mr. Williams, and then I'm going to move on to those that haven't spoken yet. Mr. Williams for Kate McKay.
I'm wondering if your opinion might be different if the language of the land acknowledgement were different, like the one that I read.
So I actually tried to sign on over here to view the Herring Pond watershed language, and I couldn't pull it up on my laptop. I think it would depend on what the language said. So not to give a non-answer, but I think it would depend.
Be happy to give this to you for your consideration.
I would be happy to take it. I'm not sure I'm going to issue, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to give you an opinion right here as I stand at the podium, but I'm happy to take it.
I understand that.
May I approach?
Yes.
Sure. Watch your step.
Keep it.
Okay, moving on, Ms. Cavaco, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I also thank Catherine for making this motion. One of the things that we have to understand is that, first of all, the only people in the town that make policy is the select board. That statement, any kind of statement, shouldn't be on one's agenda. And if I understand correctly, from the legal opinion that we've seen, they should be removed from those agendas. I don't understand why it went from the bottom up when I think everybody pretty much knows that the select board makes policy and then we follow suit to what they do. They are the executive branch, but I agree with Catherine's motion and I appreciate the sentiment. But, you know, we have to look at not only how this affects us now, but in the future. And honestly, I will support her motion.
Okay, I have Mr. Leary, Mr. Costello, and then Mr. Begley. Mr. Leary.
Yes, Catherine made a good point, and so did Betty. This is for the select board. This isn't something that we should be or even have an opinion on. And I'll give you an example. Is I don't know, it was maybe 5, 6 town meetings ago. Somebody had something they moved forward similar at town meeting. And Steve and town council ruled it, no, town meeting can't advise anybody, and we couldn't tell the selectmen this is what we want you to do. Actually, right after that, somebody brought up, well, can we make a non-vote that wouldn't count, that would just be in favor of it, you know? And they did rule that out too. And I want to remind you, you know, we're first town meeting members, this board represents them. We're advisory to town meeting, not advisory to the select board. The way this thing really should go is they should go out, get a petition, I don't know what the happy number would be, maybe 1,500, 2,000, whatever signatures. Then the Board of Selectmen would have to look at it and let them make the decision. This board can't really put our opinion on it. I don't think we should be putting our opinion. It doesn't deserve to go through the back door. I'm surprised the other boards even heard it. I can tell you right now, the Zoning Board of Appeals, the ultimate decision was Mike's, he's the chairperson, but we had a discussion between me and him on it. And to be honest with you, it shouldn't come up to us. We're an appeal board. What's this got to do, unless they were appealing something, a zoning bylaw, it had nothing to do with us, so we refused to even hear it. And I just want to point that out. It really, I think it would be this board would overstepping what they're doing. I think Catherine was right. You know, we really should be representing our precinct, period, not our own opinions. So that's my opinion on it.
Mr. Costello, and then Mr. Begley.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Moving right along to Mr. Begley.
Cool, thanks. So it was nice when I sat down today that I got this new memo from legal and from the town manager. And I'm glad I showed up 5 minutes early because I was able to speed read it. But we just heard a little bit about the email. So I'm wondering also if it would be possible to get some comments on the piece of paper that was handed to us before we sat down today.
Kate, would you like to just give us some brief, because we haven't fully digested this yet, especially on the further evaluation of the study. Do you have kind of some, call it bullet points to get through this, the further research?
I certainly can kind of take you through it. So the top part is the requested land acknowledgement. That's just repeated for everybody's reference. And then after you go to the second page, that is kind of a description of what I've been able to find out. So I searched nationwide for case law on land acknowledgements. There is no binding precedent that I can find where a land acknowledgement had been brought to court for a purpose of either obtaining land or not obtaining land or trying to enforce one. But what I did find was similar legislation in several other states, the ones that I was able to look at. I wasn't able to check every state, but the states that I did check all had some form of a land acknowledgement that was at the state level, that all either had a, I'll call it a disclaimer, that's not, speaking just generally, had a statement that the land acknowledgement was not intended to give a future claim to land at any point. So I think I was able to pull legislation from Arizona, California, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Rhode Island. So California and Arizona, you know, not in the Northeast, they're kind of on the other side of our country, so they were, I thought, far away enough where if it was just a Northeast thing, then maybe we'd get that side. The legislation in California did not pass. The legislation in Arizona was actually, this most recent legislative session for them, actually called them to ask to make sure that I knew what the status was of the bill that what had been proposed, and that bill had ended in committee, or it had been held in committee and the legislative session had ended. So I verified that. The legislation in New Hampshire was not passed, and there was a specific, there was a newspaper article that had indicated that was because one of the committees that is in the New Hampshire legislative process had indicated that there was concern about it forming or providing a basis for a claim in the future. Vermont has adopted at the state level a tribal land acknowledgement, and that contains wording indicating this will not serve as a basis for future land claims. And then Rhode Island, what I was able to find there was just an example of particular legislation where Rhode Island acknowledged a particular tribe, which is noted in the memo, and that particular tribe, that legislation acknowledging them also contained the statement that this does not provide the basis for a future claim in land. So in the absence of case law, the next best thing that I could find in all my research were states that have either taken it up and passed it, that being Vermont, or states that have taken it up and it has not passed. And then looking at the similarities among that legislation, that was one of the clauses that was pretty consistent throughout the states, no matter where they were and no matter what side of the country they were on. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it was more just a prompt for you to say that in public, so I appreciate that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Begley, are there, let's see, I've got several, do you have a follow-up, Mr. Begley?
Sort of,
Yeah.
more to the discussion.
Yes, I just want to remind our committee that the motion that is on the floor is that the topic is removed from the agenda and referred to the select board for consideration. So if we could stick to the subject, please.
Yes, thanks. And this question may be in part from ignorance, so it's more to the body though, but a few of the discussions in this discussion has been around the fact that this body does not set policy, and that the select board sets policy. So then, and we are looking to set this forward to the select board to become policy. So I'm just kind of curious that if we don't set policy, then how is this seen legally as policy? And not just the opinion of another committee in town.
I don't know how to answer that, just because
Maybe legal can.
that would be my question to legal or to the town manager as to where we would get guidance on if we don't set policy. And let me just correctly, well, I'll let you rephrase the question.
Sure. If we, as the COPC, don't set policy, then what separates this action of the land acknowledgement from us just not being another committee in town with no legal ramifications to us accepting that, and then allowing the select board to have the discussion later?
Mr. Brindisi, actually, I think Mr. Brewster had a comment before that, or do you want to wait for Mr. Brindisi?
No, just a comment that we were creating a policy to read something at every meeting or at a secured time. By definition, that's creating a policy. It's, yeah, we do, and so does the select board. That was voted on.
Set that policy.
Sorry?
But that would be, sorry, Matt.
No. Mr. Begley.
But that, wrestling with, you're saying that it's a COPC policy.
No, that's the select board policy that we follow.
Mr. Brindisi, did you have
Not all.
a comment to
Maybe
this?
Say the Pledge of Allegiance.
A lot of times, this end of the mic, make sure, or end of the table here, make sure your mics are on for it to be picked up by the local scene. Mr. Brindisi?
Good evening, Derek Brindisi, Town Manager. So I'll try to help answer that question. So first, I'd agree that this committee and no other committee sets policy. The Select Board, as the executive branch, is the only body that can actually set policy. So I think to Mr. Begley's question, so what are you doing, right? That's a question. So you're, in my opinion, you're taking a non-binding vote. You're taking a position on a community issue that has arisen the last couple months. What you decide to do with that position is entirely up to you. What it will do is it will set a precedent for other boards and committees to think that they can follow. You represent the legislative branch, so those folks that don't understand how our form of government works, they'll think that you have the ability to set policy, and they may follow suit. So I think that would be unfortunate that we have other boards and committees that are taking similar positions without realizing that they have the ability to take those positions.
Okay, I saw some hands go up. Ms. Cavaco, I saw your hand first online. Is that from before or now?
No, it's
All right,
it's
so Ms.
just
Cavaco,
now,
and then I'm going to take Mr. Leary.
and I know I'm a new town meeting member, so I kind of went backwards and started up there and came to town meeting. But my impression is that town meeting only acts within the warrant articles on town meeting warrant. Or am I not correct in that understanding?
That is correct. Right, correct, based on the existing charter, yes.
Okay.
Is that
I-
the end of your
just to
statement?
cl- I
Okay,
mean, just to clarify,
okay.
so I just, I don't understand, well, I guess it's another conversation for another day, but I was under the impression that we only act within the town meeting articles on the warrant. So, I guess I'm just a little confused at having, this
I
type
have
of
a,
conversation, that's all.
Okay, thank you,
But
Mrs. Cavaco. I have a point of
appreciate
order
your
from Pat
answering the
Adelman.
question.
Can we move the question, please?
We can certainly move the question. Are there others that wanted to speak upon this? Mr. Leary was one, Mr. Hutchinson, and myself. But Pat would like to move to a vote the motion is to remove this from the agenda and refer it to the Select Board for consideration.
That's not the motion you were voting on right now. You were voting on close and debate.
Oh,
I don't have a second.
right. So there's that's right. There's a motion to close debate. Do I have a second for this?
Second.
Mr. Begley seconds. Discussion on motion to close debate. No. I will take the roll to close debate on this topic. Are you ready, Pat? Again, this is a motion to close debate on this topic and not the motion, to refer this to the Select Board for consideration. So we'll start with the roll. Precinct 1.
Yes.
Precinct 2. Yes. Precinct 3.
Yes.
Precinct 4.
Yes.
Precinct 5.
Yes.
Precinct 6.
Yes.
Precinct 7.
Yes.
Precinct 8.
No.
Precinct 9.
Yes.
Precinct 10.
Precinct 10, yes.
Precinct 11.
Precinct 11, yes.
Precinct 12.
Yes.
Precinct 13,
Yes.
Precinct 14,
Yes.
Precinct 15,
Yes?
Precinct 16,
No.
Precinct 17,
Yes.
and Precinct 18.
Precinct 18, yes.
The motion passes.
All right, thank you, Pat. Okay, I'm going to actually ask, I'm going to have Pat take this, and then I'm also going to ask someone Mr. Brewster as vice chair to take the vote on this as I go through the roll. Now the motion carried to close debate. We are now moving on to the motion. I'm going to restate it. The motion is to have this topic removed from the agenda and referred to the select board for consideration. And we'll do that via roll. And I'm just going to ask Pat, if you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Precinct 1.
No.
Precinct 2, yes. Precinct 3.
Yes.
Precinct 4.
Yes.
Precinct 5.
Yes.
Precinct 6.
Yes.
Precinct 7.
Precinct 7, yes.
Precinct 8.
No.
Precinct 9.
Yes?
Precinct 10.
Precinct 10, yes.
Precinct 11.
Precinct 11, no.
Precinct 12.
No.
Precinct 13.
Yes.
Precinct 14.
No.
Precinct 15.
Yes.
Precinct 16.
No.
Precinct 17.
Yes.
Precinct 18.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Can I get the total?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 noes. And that would be
12 yeses.
12 yes.
I have that, I confirm.
Okay, so the motion is to have this removed from the agenda and referred to the select board carries with 12 yeses and 6 nos.
Can I make a comment?
I think I'd like to make a comment
Perfect.
first, if the committee would allow me before we move on to the next agenda point. This is a highly personal issue, even for myself, and I think that everyone on both sides has really brought up interesting questions, and the biggest thing that I'm going to lose words here, but that I want to see happen here is that it does move forward, and the fact that No Place for Hate did send us this letter that they're going to go, their advisory to the select board, and they're going to go before them, that gives me hope that there's something that we can come together on and have across all town boards and committees. But I do know that that has to happen from above with the select board. I want to see that happen. I'm more than happy to help work on something and with all these different committees and the select board. But I am unbelievably grateful to see that the people that brought this forward, the intention is amazing, and I just think that we need to just push it harder and get it the same language if we're going to adopt something across all committees and boards. And I appreciate all the hard work I know that people have put in, because I've spent plenty of hours on the phone with the presenters on this. So I hope that we can keep moving forward. I will allow 2 more comments if need be, but then I need to move on to the next discussion item on the agenda. And Ms. Catherine Holmes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So thanks to the committee for supporting this motion. I know this is a really hard topic, and we have talked for hours and hours off camera, outside of these meetings on this topic. But it's really important that we stick to our precedent and what is committed to us as chair people and town meeting members, and it's really clear in the current charter. We don't We don't set policy, and we are strictly to support the warrant. And that, articles and bylaws, that's what we do. So I think that there is a lot of passion behind this. I don't think this is the end. I think it's the beginning, but we have to do it the right way. And to speak to the voice of the residents that have come forward and to the advocacy of the chair people on this committee, if you look in this room, and the people that are sitting at home can't see this, but we have almost 100% of the select board members sitting in this room, with the exception of Mr. Bletzer, who had an outstanding commitment. But they're all here, and they have heard and have been listening. They've heard us, and I know that they will take this up, and they will deeply consider this. We have Mr. Golden, who is our liaison to the COPC. So this is not the end. It is just the beginning, but we need to do it correctly, and I hope that you will appreciate the intention that I made in this motion. I want to make sure that we can stand strongly on the language that we support, and that it's language that is, as policy, can be then filtered to all committees, and they can adopt it. So, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to allow one more comment, because I don't want to start venturing into the fact that we're debating again. So, Ms. Adelman, you can be that last, and then we're going to move on.
It's not a comment, it's a question. Did we got a letter saying that no place for hate was going before the select board?
Well, in their letter, and we can,
Is this an email
it says,
we all got?
yes. At its June 12th meeting, the No Place for Hate Committee voted to recommend that the Town of Plymouth formally adopt an official land acknowledgement to be posted on the Town of Plymouth's website, and that it be used by all boards and committees to recognize a valuable relationship. So maybe I'm projecting a little bit, but I'm reading into that would include the Select Board.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Legislative Oversight Committee update. Mr. Costello, I think I'm going to give the room 1 minute, and then I'm going to have you just give us a brief update, if you will.
Very good, sir. I have a brief one ready.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming here this evening. Appreciate it. Thank you. We'll talk soon. Okay. Thank you all. If I could have the room quiet, please. We'll get back to the work here on the agenda. Again, Mr. Costello, he's the chair of our Legislative Oversight Committee. A brief update, a little background on this, why you see in parentheses unrecorded conservation land. I'm looking to, there was some land discovered that, and this is what I'm kind of hoping to find out, that was not recorded as conservation land or may have been recorded. So what I wanted to have Mr. Costello and hopefully the Legislative Oversight Committee do, and I'm sure that where this is just a brand new subject, haven't really dived into it quite yet, but was to get us a kind of a plan of action that the town may have to rectify the situation. So Mr. Costello, if you could give you a little bit of an update. I have asked Mr. Brindisi to also stay here for a few moments to speak to this if the committee has any questions.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To your point, at our last month's meeting, we had a brief update, and this topic sort of had just come to light. It was brought to my attention by members of this committee, Ms. Holmes and others, and it stemmed from the original article that prompted all of this was the Hedges Pond Road Conservation article that, through some of our research, dates back to the early 90s. And what we've been able to find out is some things weren't recorded at the end and were left unattended. That prompted a discussion, and then shortly thereafter, it came to light that this type of thing or variations of this type of thing have happened in hundreds and hundreds of land transactions that town meeting has either approved or talked about. We met at our last meeting. We talked about it. We, as a committee, decided to gather as much information as we could. We were going to meet this upcoming Monday night, the 19th, discuss the information. We had opted in an unofficial vote not to bring in anyone to speak on it yet from the town. We just wanted to digest as much information as we could gather. And then at a second meeting, or a meeting after this upcoming one, we would invite maybe the town manager, maybe a CPC member, anyone that could enlighten us on how this happened, what the sense of urgency is. We didn't know a great deal about it. We sort of heard it third hand. So as a legislative oversight, we've taken it up as our number one item at this time. We're going to discuss it Monday night, and then we'll bring in town professionals to fill in the blanks, and we'll have a report next month for this committee. And it will be on our radar going forward as a number one thing, unless for some reason it's explained away and things go back to normal. But the initial report is not good, so we'll have to get to the bottom of it. But thank you. We meet Monday night at 6 o'clock on August 19th. We're in the rope walk room right here in Town Hall.
Not hearing any particular question for Mr. Brindisi. I mean, do you have anything for him now, or do you have a request for
No, well, I'm
somebody
gonna-
representative from the town to be at your meeting, or?
Well, not at this time. We took an unofficial vote not to have anyone from the town at our meeting Monday night, because we wanted to go through all the information and find out who exactly we would like to have come in front and speak to us. It was sort of new, sort of raw when we were talking about it 3 weeks ago. And as a committee, we thought we would do it that way. I have yet to contact the town manager's office or anyone's office other than a host of emails that have been sent to me from others. But in the next, tomorrow being Friday, I'm in town, so I'm going to make some inquiries, and we'll have a full complement of discussion on Monday night regarding this.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Costello. Ms. Holmes and then Mr. Brewster.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Costello, for picking this up under legislative oversight. I know it's a large task, but I think that when I raise this up, that my goal is to, as you said, and it sounds like you've picked it up quite well, is to make sure that we understand where the gap was, how did this happen, and just to be clear, it's about 520 properties that were not properly permitted, or the paperwork for permitting, from my understanding, was not either completed or it has not been, we'll get Mr. Brindisi to clarify this, but the goal is that there's approximately 520 properties that need to be addressed. The filing fees for those properties, I don't believe, have been paid. So my question to Mr. Brindisi, and he can come and provide an update, because I know he's been working on this, and this is something he's been trying to correct, so it doesn't happen in the future. But I'm hoping that we were able to get an article established or a budget item so that we could process this in fall town meeting. But that's my question, is where does it stand with the financials?
Great question, Ms. Holmes. So when this was brought to my attention, I believe by you, Ms. Holmes, I had met with Mr. Hartman, Director of Planning, and what he educated me on is that over the course of time, so this is going back years, if not decades, as you all know, there's typically an article in front of town meeting members to transfer parcels of land to the Open Space Committee for the purposes of conservation. And so over the course of time, approximately 550 parcels were transferred through town meeting over to Open Space Committee for conservation purposes, and they are still held in conservation. The issue that has arisen is that none of those parcels have ever had a conservation restriction placed on it through the Registry of Deeds. KP Law at the time had looked at this issue, according to Mr. Hartman, and said that legally, you don't have to put a CR on these parcels. However, the belts and suspenders approach would be to pay the $150 filing fee to have a CR on that, because that will maintain these parcels in conservation in perpetuity. When we're all gone someday, nobody will remember the vote that was taken in 2004 for a certain parcel. I've since met with Mr. Patrick Farrer, who works for Mr. Hartman. He has filed an application with the Community Preservation Committee for $100,000 so that we can go ahead and we have the resources available to file each one of those restrictions at the Registry of Deeds. This issue came up after the application period had expired with CPC. The application is in front of CPC and will be taken up at the April town meeting.
So can I do a follow-up real quick?
Follow-up question, and then, Mr. Brewster, you still have a question? No, so then it'll go, the follow-up question, and then Mr. Stone, and then Ms. Adelman.
So I just really want to thank you for digging into this. And I think that one of the things that as a town meeting member, we need to make sure is that when we have land that comes up, when we're evaluating the cost for town meeting members to consider, that the filing fees are also included in that as a line item, so that we don't have any issues with this going forward. And then my other just quick question to you is, if we do not file this, it's reminiscent, I think, of the 1,000 acres where we're scrambling for titles and all of this, right? So I think we have to do it in order to make sure that we are crossing our Ts and dotting our Is so that we don't run into that type of debacle. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, no, I'm in 100% agreement that these 525 parcels or thereabouts will be filed as soon as we have resources to file those. And then to your earlier point, we've already had the conversation that any article moving forward, not only will it ask the town to authorize the transfer of these parcels open space, but it will also, in that same article language, seek an appropriation for the cost of the filing fees to the Registry of Deeds, and then any other legal costs that are associated with that. So I think that was the misstep in the past. It was always just a straight-to-straight transfer, and there was never an appropriation. So we're going to correct that moving forward.
Mr. Stone?
Mr. Brandisi answered my questions, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Adelman, Mrs. Adelman.
These were not Community Preservation Act articles, so why are you asking the Community Preservation Committee to fund the expense of getting the restrictions?
That's a great question. So, as you know, the Community Preservation Act allows for the funding of 3 different mechanisms: affordable housing, open space, and historic. So this would fall in an open space. And so because this falls within one of those 3 buckets, versus going to town meeting and asking to raise and appropriate $100,000, we think it's more appropriate to go to CPC funds where those dollars are specifically set aside for that purpose.
I don't agree with that. I think that's all the less money for affordable housing, historical,
And open
and
space.
actual open space. Thank you.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As an administrative question for Legislative Oversight Committee, well, I should say that I was not aware of this problem. Catherine just kind of tossed it out there. And I don't know if anybody else had any background on it. But,
Agreed.
Is there a list of the items that the Administrative Oversight Committee is investigating with any sort of status that lives next to them? And if not, can there be, and can we have access to it for our monthly meetings?
Sure. So
Thanks.
what I'd like to do is, I'm going to first hand that over to Catherine Holmes, because I think she was chair when this started, and I don't think that I was even sitting at in one of these chairs. So if Catherine, do you have?
Yeah,
any-
I'm gonna jump in here for a minute. So, one of the great things about being in my area where we're still doing lots of development, still have lots of conservation land, and we have a lot of people that are looking out for our open spaces. This came to me from several residents, and they were saying, look, I think we have a problem here. I think this is an issue, and they started digging into it. And so they, over weeks and weeks, we came to an understanding that this was a larger problem than just 2 or 3 properties, which is where I thought it was in the beginning. And then working with town management and the planning board and the planning department, they came up with the list. So the legislative oversight has been provided the full list of the 500+ properties. It's a spreadsheet, and
It's been requested, I don't have it as of yet.
I've sent it to you, and so does Steve Bulletin. I'll resend it to you.
Okay, very
that
good.
You absolutely have it.
I can,
And so I'm just going to finish up. So this has been something that is not just thrown out there. This has been something we've been trying to gather details. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I try to present facts. And so if I don't know all the facts, and I'm also not the person that should be digging into this, we have a wonderful group, the Legislative Oversight Group, and this seemed to me like a perfect fit for them. So I gave it to Alan, and Alan has picked the ball up. He's been running with it beautifully, and he is working on a plan to get the information. But what we wanted to do, I think, in raising this tonight is to just educate the chairs and the town meeting members of this issue, so they're aware of it, that it's something that this group is working on. Alan, do you agree with that?
Yeah, and that's exactly how we left it at our meeting. We wanted to gather all the information. A lot like Catherine said, originally, I had heard it was 2 properties, and then someone pulled me aside outside one of the meeting halls and said, you know, you're looking at something 300 or 400 properties. And that was overwhelming, quite honestly. So now we've heard tonight, it's in excess of 500 properties, and we've seen, the committee has seen some emails where they're looking for the monies to go back and properly record these things.
Yeah.
But the hope is to make sure it doesn't happen going forward on any new articles, and then to figure out what went wrong and fix it.
I would never accuse Mrs. Holmes of a conspiracy theory. And she knows that. But that doesn't, I would still like to see the list of items and the status of the items, just as a monthly record of what we do, irrespective of how they get put on that list and at what the timing of that entry might be. You know, just so that I can take that back to my precinct and let them understand the sorts of investigations that are going on. Thank you.
Mrs. Alleman, I think that you had some comment that you wanted to get to Jen.
The list was sent to us from Steve Bulletin, but it was on a link, and I could not get the link. So Mr. Bulletin actually sent me the list, and I'm trying to dig through it here now so I can send it to you all. Thank you.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Costello.
If you would, if you'd like, make it an agenda item, specific agenda item for our next meeting under the legislative oversight update, and we'll bring everyone up. We'll have had 1, maybe 2 meetings before we meet again.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to, because I know that they might try and get out of here, but thank Town Council and the Town Manager for being here this evening for both of these topics so far. So thank you very much for your time. I know it's starting to get to be a long day for both of you. If that's it from you, Alan, I think we'll move on.
I'm in good shape. Thank you very much.
All right. We're going to next move on to a town meeting handbook update. Mr. LaFrari.
Good evening. Let me just do one thing with my screen here. Well, so we have a meeting coming up. We have made a lot of progress to date with revising, updating the town meeting handbook. And we hope to get something out, I would say, in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So that's about it. We have a meeting coming up. We're scheduling it for next week once we get a quorum. And that's about it. Are there any questions?
Seeing none, I'd like to move on to new and old business. This is typically where during new business, I just want to kind of remind the Committee of Precinct chairs, September, unfortunately, is right around the corner. Summer's coming to an end, and I wanted to give you some dates so that you can, I know one precinct has already scheduled their fall town meeting caucus. I also want to remind you that when you're scheduling those caucuses, I'm not sure when our admin assistant will be back. So if you could, when you schedule that caucus and send it into the town clerk, if you could also copy me and, also let me know if it's in person, if it's hybrid. I'd like to see the link for that, because we also, create that table for the advisory and finance committee so they can plan as early as possible, having representation at each one of your caucuses. That being said, for the COPC, I have reserved the room one extra day in September and one extra day in October, meaning September 9th, which would be the Monday as we had previously done when we've done extra meetings, September 19th, our regularly scheduled meeting, October 7th, which is a Monday, and October 17th. Now, I haven't seen the warrant yet. I don't know if we're going to necessitate all 4 of those meetings, but I'd like to put them on your calendars, so if need be, we can go through the same process that we did last year. If we needed extra explanation, anything that might be a little more confusing for our town meeting members or ourselves, or an extra presentation, we can do that during that. That being said, you all have received from Nicole Manfredi, and I'd just like to bring it into the record here. On Thursday, October 10th is the town meeting preview and presentation night at 6 p.m. on Town Hall. PAC TV has picked up the ball Local Scene has picked up the ball and have that live on their YouTube channel, which I believe on the YouTube channel, it's immediately available for anyone going forward. And then they'll be replaying that throughout the time leading up to town meeting. On Friday, October 11th, by the end of the business day, is the deadline to register for remote participation in town meeting. There are no exceptions. That was in bold letters from Mrs. Manfredi. On Tuesday, October 15th, credentials will be sent to the remote participants. On Thursday, October 17th, is the cutoff for the motions book and submission of presentations and videos not produced by the local scene. On Saturday, October 19th, is town meeting at 8 a.m. at Plymouth North High School. On Monday, October 21st, would be the adjourned session of town meeting at 6 p.m. at Plymouth North High School. So again, those are the dates. You received them from Mrs. Manfredi. Actually, all town meeting members did. I've given you the dates for COPC for the next two months. So hopefully you can start scheduling your caucuses so we can have great participation. Is there any other new business? Is that your hand up? Oh, I have Mrs. Adelman and then Mrs. Montanari.
It's an announcement. Is that new business?
That's, you can make an announcement. I just more or less did, so.
Oh, okay. The Cedarville Steering Committee is having a meeting on August 21st, and the discussion is going to be traffic mitigation. There's an assistant to the Senate President who will be there to talk about things that we should be doing, and I hope you'll all attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Montanari, new business.
Last night, as most of you know, the North Plymouth Steering Committee had a meeting with, is it on?
I think Mr. Hutchinson's was closer to you.
Thank you. Last night, the North Plymouth Steering Committee had a meeting at Cottage Park I attended, I didn't stay through the entirety, but it was concerning the plot of land that's been vacant at Benny's Plaza. So this is coming up. I think we all have to be very vigilant. As I said, it was held by the North Plymouth Steering Committee. Now, I'm involved with the Plymouth Center Steering Committee, and this is really in our jurisdiction because it's south of Nelson Street, and Nelson Street provides the line between the two steering committees. So I don't know if that was a mistake or whether or not they're going to go around to all the steering committees. It's a major project. As you know, the area has been, this is, as we said earlier, Benny's Plaza. And it's really a blight. Pioppi's Liquor Store is there, and that's the only, I think there is also a nail salon among the other stores, of which there's a vacant bunch of them. But we all have to be vigilant with this. It would be a big project, and I'm not 100% sure what was proposed last night, but it was my understanding that they just met and got information from the petitioner, as well as taken in comments from those in attendance.
What was the area? Is it Benny's?
Benny's Plaza.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Montanari. Any other new business? Seeing none, any old business? None there. I'd like to move on to public comment. Is there anyone online with public comment? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, all those in favor? Thank you all. Good night. We will see you twice next month.
Who seconded that?